Good to have you back. This is the second hour of the Dan Cofall Show. I am Dan Cofall. It's nice to have each and every one of you on board. Our phone number is 877-3-COFALL, C-O-F-A-L-L. DanCofall.com is the website. You can find us on Twitter, Dan Cofall. You can find on Facebook, the Dan Cofall Show. Let's see here. LibertyExpressRadio.com is rebroadcasts our show from 8 till 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 till 9 every day, and a free newsletter for each and everybody who would like it by going out to DanCofall.com. We'll send it out to each and every day. We'd love to thank our many sponsors, but specifically Dylan Gage, the finest folks in the precious metals business around the world. Known them for years and done business with them. Love them, and I hope that you will give them a try if you need them. Let's see. Did I get through phone number? I got through everything else. Yes. This is all new to me, so be patient with me, folks. And it's good to have you back. We know you have choices at 5 o'clock, and we're happy that you made this choice. Good to have you. Good to have you on board with us. We're going to be having Gerald Celente is going to be joining us here in just a few minutes. Love his new tagline. If you haven't heard Gerald Celente, do we have? Oh, well, then I'll just welcome him on the show right now instead of praising him while he's gone. I'll praise him to his face. Gerald Celente, he is the author of the Trends Journal. Love the tagline, my friend. Love the new website, History Before It Happens. Gerald Celente, how are you, brother?
Hey, Dan. Thanks for having me on. I'm doing great.
Well, you are on the first day of this new format, the Dan Cofall Show, and Shane and I sat down and said, who do we want to have on? Who is one of everybody's favorite guests? And you were at the top of that list.
Thank you. I'm honored, and all the best of good fortune with your new show.
Well, thank you very much. All right, my friend. Interesting times we're seeing right now. We're seeing things that I've never seen in this economy. Gerald, you have always been right on the money since you've been doing this since the 70s, the 80s, early 80s?
1980 we began, and we've been publishing the Trends Journal since 1991.
All right, so when I opened the show today, what I said was the thing that this show would be most about is time. Because right now, the timeline that I see, and you and I have generally been on the same page, but, we miss some, or we're a little different every now and then. Time to me seems like it is accelerating and compressing. And all the bad things that I thought might happen at some time are now happening at a much quicker pace. Am I on target with that?
Yes. It is accelerating at levels we've never seen before. This is the global age. And, for example, when you talk about gold and what it's going through now, I bought my first buy of gold in 1978 at $187.50 an ounce.
Wow.
And in those days, just to put things in perspective for the people that were around there and remember in those days, the silver markets, for example, they're down there, the guys down near you over there, the Hunt brothers, were manipulating it. I say that because back then, when I talk about the global age, there was no Russia. It was the Soviet Union, 1980, when the market crashed, and everything behind from Berlin east was locked behind the Iron Curtain.
Right.
There was no China. What did people know about China? They knew about Mao and and some stuff, but there was China didn't even rank in it was probably about number 18 as an economy.
Sure.
And then India, what did people know about India? The point that I'm making, Dan, it's very different now. It's a global game, and things are accelerating.
Yeah, and you are so right on the money when it comes to China and India. When you used to get little toy cars, when I was a kid, I would get little things, little metal toy cars that said "Made in Japan," and you went, "Oh, it's a cheap little toy." Then and there was no such thing as "Made in China." Then all of a sudden, Japan started to obviously improve their product quality, and then it became "Made in China." And "Made in India" still doesn't even pop up on the radar. But these countries are viable forces of cheap, competitive labor for U.S. jobs. I don't know how the United States competes with that right now, and they haven't done a good job competing in the last 20 years.
And that's because they deregulated the laws that were in place that prevented this from happening before. And when you think about, as you said, the same with me when I was a kid, anything that came from Japan was crap. Not only did they sell our jobs out, they sold out our technology as well.
That's right.
And now, what you're looking at, I got a kick. I'm reading the Financial Times today, and the European Union's complaining that they're having difficulty competing with China now on the technological end. Yet guess what? You made them build your airplanes over there, all your solar equipment, your automobiles. You gave them all the technology for high tech. You think they could have done it without that? Because they looked at the bottom line and were only interested in boosting their profits and finding the cheapest labor possible. But they didn't only manufacture it there. They stole, or they didn't steal. They gave them our brain power along with their manpower, our manpower for pennies on the dollar.
Well, and let's think back. I don't want to make this a pick on politicians. Oh, yes, I do. Let's go back to Bill Clinton for just a minute. Let's remember the Bill Clinton L'Oreal China connection, where the accusation was that L'Oreal, at the insistence of the administration, passed on missile technology secrets to the Chinese. And those were decades in development. We picked up the German scientists after World War II. We spent decades developing that technology, and in a period of a few years, the Chinese caught up overnight. Not possible to do that. We ended up giving them the most sensitive technology there is, and they've got it now, and they're using it. It's not like they didn't even have to steal it. We gave it.
Exactly. And you were talking about Japan, the same thing there. You think any of these countries had the brain power that we had to create these things? That's America's strength, and they took it away from us. And not to forget NAFTA, of course. You remember that wonderful debate with Ross Perot and Al Gore.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and Perot warned us.
The giant sucking sound.
That's right, and they sucked the life out of this nation.
And yet, it's still happening. You're hearing people now say, "Hey, we're going to start to repatriate some of these overseas jobs." Folks, do not get concerned or excited about this. The reason they're bringing the jobs back is these companies can hire part-time labor, cheap, and pay no health care benefits, and that's the only way American labor competes with international labor right now.
And you're saving on shipping.
Yes, sir.
So welcome to Slavelandia. That's what I've been calling this now.
Right on the money.
They turned this great country into Slavelandia. All these kids graduating college now, all these, it's all in the newspapers, all these, ceremonies that they have. What are they going to get a job as? What are you going to stock shelves at Walmart's, work with Staples? Maybe you'll get a good job at Home Depot. I got one for you, maybe Office Max. Oh, how about CVS? You want to be a pharmacist? You can't open up your own pharmacy anymore like they used to do in the old days.
That's right.
Work at CVS. You want a clothing store? Forget it. You could be a clerk at Macy's.
Boy, you got that on the money, my friend. That's exactly right. And same way with manufacturing, same way with farms and ranches, something very near and dear to Shane's heart. It is the sellout of the American middle class, coast to coast, from the west coast of New York to the east coast of California. The sellout has been relentless for 40 years. It's a corporate takeover. And you could also go back to the banking system with the deregulation. Began under Carter, by the way. He was the big one. When I was a young guy, and I was, 1974 was my real first job. I had other jobs, but the first business, professional, high-quality job, and I used to fly first class. I used to get lobster thermidor. I used to roll out a roast. You remember that?
Yeah.
I remember those days. Those were great.
And now look at it. It's Cattle Car Express. And so what they did was they sold the country out. You had all these competitive airlines. You had Piedmont, Allegheny, one after another.
Right.
And they would compete. But what they did was they gave everything to the big guys. There was no such thing as Bank of America. Yeah, it was over there in California, and it was a small bank, and there was no such thing as interstate banking.
That's right.
So what they did was they deregulated. What they did was they took all the laws that were put in place so the robber barons of the late 19th century, early 20th century wouldn't steal anything, and gave it back to the robber barons. But now they have different names. How does too big to fail fit?
Oh, the latest one, which I just love, is too big to jail. I can't send anybody to jail because that will threaten the banking system, because somebody might actually have to pay a penalty for doing something criminally wrong.
That's right. That's Eric Holt, our Attorney General.
Oh, you bet. You know, Gerald, you ought to put something together here, my friend. A brief history of modern American history, just from 1970 forward. I venture to say that most people have completely forgotten that there was no Bank of America, that there was no China, there was no India. In 1970, all the way through 1980, there was no anything.
There was no anything. And they sold us out. And the other one I have a big problem with, we're calling everybody, these terrorists, terrorists, in Benghazi. It was a terrorist act. Hey, it was a terrorist act to kill Gaddafi. Capisce?
You bet.
It was a terrorist act to go into Iraq. It was a terrorist act and continues to be a terrorist act to be in Afghanistan. And this is, I'm a believer in the principles upon which this country was founded upon. I believe in the founding fathers.
Yes.
And I want this country to go back to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the precepts and principles that were put in place by Washington, Madison, Jefferson, and all the great presidents that gave put their lives on the line to give us freedom and liberty, and now they're taking it away from us by bringing it all overseas, whether they took our jobs overseas or they're sending our money overseas to fight in these foreign entanglements that the first president of the United States, a man that led the charge, warned us against.
That's exactly right. And I asked Shane at the very beginning of the show, I said, Shane, do you consider socialism tyranny? He said, well, of course, because somebody's taking what isn't theirs to distribute it to somebody else who didn't work for it. I said, if that's the case, then we are in the midst of tyranny right now. People want what we have. They want to make what is ours theirs. I said earlier that if you want to say pro-Tea Party, we are. Pro-Libertarian, we are. Constitutionalists, we are. And capitalists, we are. I don't give a damn about Democrats and Republicans. I don't give a damn about right and left. I care about our Constitution and people being allowed to keep what they earn and do what they want.
And the other thing is, of course, I'm a political atheist, so I don't, I'm with you. I don't believe in any of these political parties, and so it's a mafia. They just have nicer names, Republicans and Democrats rather than Gambinos and Bananos.
I'm a Republican or a recovering Republican. I just want you to know that.
I mean, and I began, by the way, my first job at a graduate school was I used to run political campaigns in Westchester County, the richest county in the United States, and I was the assistant to the Secretary of the New York State Senate at 23. And I spent several years in D.C. as one of the chief government affairs specialists for the chemical industry.
Wow.
So I'm no lefty or, one of those guys, so I saw both sides of everything.
Now, you saw that from the inside.
The inside.
Oh, yeah.
And as you well know, with the Trends Journal, one of our contributors is Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, former Assistant Treasury Secretary under Ronald Reagan.
You bet.
So we're guys that know what it looks like, and it is a complete ripoff. This is the stealing and the raping of America. We have a gang of 535 senators and congressmen that are stealing the money and sending us to war without us having any say in it. And I do not call this socialism, by the way. I call the merger of state and corporate powers fascism.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what it is by definition.
Next step beyond socialism is fascism. People have to realize that we have already blown through socialism. Most people will say, well, we're not a socialist country. They won't even admit to socialism yet, let alone fascism.
But it's fascism when you have too big to fails. People are railing against capitalism. This is not capitalism. In capitalism, there's no such thing as a too big to fail.
That's right. That's exactly right. And then the tragedies we have in the news just in the last 2 months, and it's almost what gets me, Gerald, and I've got about 2 minutes left. You can talk about the timeline as we walk out the segment. What gets me is that it looks like the White House is dumping its ballast off of a sinking ship, and it's trying to get every bad thing out into the media right now, as the old Saul Alinsky rulebook said, can overwhelm the community, deluge the community with so many things they can't build up anger for everything. It looks like the White House is clearing the decks right now, and for what? I'm not sure what the next step is.
Well, the other thing, too, look what happened with the Boston Massacre over there, how they raped us of our rights when you saw the stormtroopers going into people's houses without warrants, and women coming out holding their babies with one hand up as a bunch of guys with enough body armor to go through the Battle of the Bulge are trained on them. They brought the military out. So you could see where it's going. So I believe that with all this coming down on Obama, watch for a wag-the-dog moment. Bill Clinton was famous for it. Every time he got caught with something, whether it was Monica Lewinsky or anything else, it was bombs away over Baghdad and cruise missiles going into some other foreign country. So look for a wag-the-dog moment. That's what I'm looking for.
You bet, brother. Are you seeing us getting to one last question, and then I'm out of time. Are you seeing us getting to the 2014 midterms without turmoil in this country, without turmoil in the streets?
It has to happen. It is happening. We're only in a lull right now. And again, anybody that's watching what's going on in gold knows that the game is rigged, just like they're rigging the bond markets in front of our eyes with the Fed buying $85 billion each month. The Japanese doing the same, the Europeans doing the same, and if anybody has attention deficit disorder, remember LIBOR. That's right, they rigged $700 trillion worth of interest rates. Who wants this paper crap? Nobody. And the reason they're driving down gold is so they can keep dumping cheap money into the system to keep the Ponzi scheme going.
Quick question: were you successful in your pursuit on MF Global?
I got about 93% back, so I still took a hit.
Yeah, God bless you, man. I remember the day that happened, and I feel for you, my friend. You're a good guy to clear your schedule to come on at short notice for it like this, and I knew I could count on you, and I appreciate it very much, Gerald.
Well,
You're a great guest.
I wanted to be on to wish you good luck.
Thank you, my friend. Trends Journal. It's Gerald Celente. History before it happens. Great tagline. Go out to TrendsResearch.com, and that is Gerald's website, and you will enjoy it very much. God bless you, my friend.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
All right. What a great guy. Gosh, I love talking to him. Did he disappoint you today, Shane? Not a bit, right?
Never did. Gerald Celente never disappoints me.
A great guy. All right, let's get to the Dylan Gage daily update. Danny.
The Dow was down 19 points. The S&P was down 1. The NASDAQ was down 2.5. 30-year bond yields 3.16, 19 on the 10-year and 0.84 on the 5-year, essentially unchanged. Copper closed at $3.35, up 3. Gold, big day, up $38 to $13.94. Silver was up 71 cents at $22.94. Oil was up 65 cents to $96.67. The U.S. dollar was weaker across the board. And that is your Dylan Gage market update. Folks, gold has hit a technical bottom, according to some technical analysts. And if you look at a chart, and if you sign up for my newsletter, you'll see it tomorrow morning. It looks like a double bottom. Now, you have record number of shorts on gold, and if we get one or two more back-to-back up days, you're going to see a huge short squeeze. You're going to see short covering. One other topic that I want to bring up is there are a lot of new ETFs being issued. And in one genre, they're looking for yield. They're trying to find you, the investor, income because they know you're starving for it. But rightly so, you are scared in this low interest rate environment against rising interest rates. Well, one genre of these ETFs, they're buying junk or high yield bonds that have a slightly higher yield, and then they're selling treasury bonds to make a spread, to make that interest rate differential. That way it doesn't really matter. It's kind of a hedge position where it doesn't matter whether it goes up or down. Folks, the problem is bonds don't just move on interest rates. You can have what's called a flight to quality, a scare, if you will. And if you do get such a scare, you could have high yield bonds sell off while simultaneously there's a flight into treasuries and they go up in value, and you can be wrong on both sides of that trade. So that's not a true hedge that just limits the downside. You could be wrong on both sides. That happened to long-term capital in 1998. So just be careful. Make sure you know what you're getting into. If you've got any questions or comments, you can call me, Danny Stewart, at 855-REAL-WEALTH. Again, that's 855-REAL-WEALTH, or you can go to noramassetmanagement.com.
Edmund Wright is going to be joining us here in just a few seconds when we take a break on the Dan Cofall Show. Really, am I?
You don't have to.
No, it's okay. I'm. If you have to appreciate the novelty of the first day of a new show in radio. It may seem like the old show, but as Shane would say, there is a duck paddling mightily underneath the surface to make this all work, including this last minute vamp. We'll be right back. 877-3-COFAL. The website is dancofall.com. Lots of you folks are signing up for the newsletter as we speak. We thank you all very much. You can go out to dancofall.com, and we will send you a free newsletter every morning. We'll be right back after this break.